Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review / knife overview to show the guys. This is the Civivi Clavi, or at least that's how I'm going to pronounce it. This is an Ostap Hell design. Pretty interesting, reasonable price tag. I'm going to make sure that it is linked right down in the description so that you guys can check it out if you want to. It does help my channel and use my links, but that's entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Civivi for sending this in for me to take a look at. Thanks to my patrons for supporting me, and please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this guy. Overall length of the Clavi, sorry, it won't sit perfectly straight. Right about 7 inches on the dot. Blade length is coming in about 3 1/8, so be aware of that for legal stuff. And then the cutting edge is about 2.85 inches. I think they listed a little shorter online, but that's what I'm getting. Let's go ahead and do some size comparisons, just a couple, up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. This is obviously a skinny boy. It is closer to the Rat 2, obviously, but a little bit shorter. How about up against the Demco AD 20.5? There we go. How about up against the Benchmade Bug Out? There we go. Did you tip over? Can you stay? All right, there we go. And last but not least, we'll go ahead and do, how about the Spyderco Para 3? All right, so how is the action on this guy? The action is very similar to other Civivi knives. If you push over that inset liner lock, it'll kind of drop, right? It's on bearings and it's smoother than you might expect for being such a light and skinny blade, but truthfully, with the whole thing being as light and skinny as it is, and with it only having a front flipper as the deployment option, it's pretty easy to manipulate. I gotta say, I'm fairly impressed. I do miss it every now and then, and I gotta say, in almost every way, it would be better if this just had a flipper tab on it. There's one thing, and we'll talk about that, but truthfully, I wish it just had a flipper. Truthfully, though, it is easy to disengage the lock bar, and it's fairly easy to front flip as far as front flippers go. If you've never used one before, you're going to have to learn. I mean, anybody can adapt to it, right? But it's just got a little bit of an adaptation process. Carry profile. Let's do thickness first. Thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. It's pretty darn thin. Shouldn't be too much of an issue for anybody. Length and height up against the PM2 and Para 3. This carries like a fat pin, right? It's really not going to be a difficult object to carry. In fact, it's closer to something you would forget about. You're going to spend less time complaining about, how much room it's taking up in your pocket, and more time complaining about how often you accidentally washed it, right? So just be aware of that. Let's go ahead and weigh it. What are we looking at for materials? In this case, we are looking at burlap micarta that it kind of looks and feels like petrified grandma's couch. But it does have, a G10 option, and I think there's another micarta option. I don't know. There's something like that. This would not have been my first choice, but like I said, you have options, right? One of the options is the G10 option is actually $2 less expensive, right? So weight. Oh yeah, and then the blade is Nitro V, and it does have full steel liners on both sides that are nested. Weight is coming in at 1.62 ounces. I don't think that's going to be a problem for anybody, right? Anybody who's going to complain about that, sorry, I don't trust your judgment. That's so nose in the air dismissive. Sorry. Let's get on my tools and do a hardware check. As per usual, my tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use on this channel. T8 for the pivot, thank goodness, and surprisingly, T8 for the pocket clip screws, which are, well, 2 of them are the integrity screws. So actually, that's pretty great. This should be beautifully simple to take apart. And it's also got nice fasteners, so you should be good to go. No real complaints there. Moving on here, let's go ahead and get a measurement of blade stock thickness. Get out my calipers here. Blade stock looks super thin. Yeah. 80, say 80 or 88? 88 thousandths, probably 90 thousandths there. Very thin blade, as it should be, because the blade, the height of the blade is very thin. Okay, meat and potatoes. It's not the first time we've seen a skinny little front flipper, but these things do have their place. I mean, this type of blade, it's a very thin, more, I guess, is more Wharncliffe than anything else. This is the type of knife that is nice to carry in an office setting that allows it, or just a very light use, scenario. If you know that the maximum use that your knife is going to get day to day is just going to be like opening letters and opening packages, things like that, even this is overkill, right? But this is the type of thing that is so easy to carry. You can almost carry it in your shirt pocket. There's a few other knives out there that sort of imitate this style. The one that comes to mind is the CRKT CEO, which my buddy actually does daily carry at his office job and just loves it because it doesn't take up a lot of room in the pocket. Obviously, this is not going to be appealing to somebody who is a lumberjack, right? So, before you complain about the size of it, think, is this made for me? And if it seems like it's not, then it probably wasn't. But, if you like lighter knives, you like smaller knives, right? Or you just work in a setting where you don't demand very much at all from your pocket knife, then this might be super beneficial for you. Truthfully, outside of the pocket clip, here's the thing. It's not the type of knife that I'm going to grip like this and use like this, right? Only in the rarest of occasions, and I honestly still can't even think of any. That's the only way that I feel the pocket clip. This type of knife, I'm probably much more likely to hold it like this or hold it like this to get into a package, in which case the pocket clip doesn't bother me. It is definitely a goose-faced clip, though, which is bothersome in a different way, and that way is that it can grab onto things as you walk by and bend itself out, which is super annoying. That can happen with any clip, but Civivi really likes to make the grabbiest clips in the whole world, and it just drives me crazy. I really wish they'd do away with that, but what are you going to do? Once again, the petrified grandma's couch scales are kind of, they're hairy. Burlap micarta is such a weird material to me. At some point, someone was like, what would make this better if it had a bunch of fibers and crap sticking out of it? It's like orange juice with pulp. Thanks, I'll have my orange juice without hair in it, please. I don't know why this is appealing, but this is the most burlap micarta I have ever felt. And they chose green and peach color, wood color, I don't know. You can get black. That's all I'll say. If you just absolutely love how this looks, right? If you're like, I have an ancient lampshade that looks exactly the same and I love it. Right, well then here you go. Here it is. But I would choose almost anything over this. But you know what? The fit and finish on it is great. This is really all personal preference that I'm talking about, and is really not fair when you're trying to do an objective review. Sometimes I stray from that path. Yeah, it's burlap micarta that's green and wood colored. Let's see here. The blade itself has what I believe is Civivi's glass blasting on it. It might just be a light tumbling. Sometimes it's hard to tell. This is a very pointy blade and is obviously not meant for anything outside of light duty cutting. But it will excel at that. And, even though the blade doesn't have a lot of room to taper, again, it is pretty thin to begin with, so as far as slicing, it'll do it. You can see there it's not amazingly clean. It will definitely cut. If the goal here is to poke into a package and then cut, yeah, it's gonna do that, right? I don't want to sit here and complain too much. Nitro V, I'm not sure if Nitro V is the right steel for the, I'm not really sure what the right steel is for this blade geometry. Probably just something that would maximize edge retention and sacrifice all of the toughness in the world, But I don't know. Nitro V, I guess if you want to use this to cut a zip tie, that's pushing it. But Nitro V is definitely tougher than M390, right? So maybe it'll survive that if that's something you come across, right? Maybe you're cutting open packages of office supplies, in which case sometimes they do have annoying zip ties and things on them. And I would venture to guess that this will get through it. I don't know if there's enough integrity in the liners and the pivot to withstand the force, right? Because it's not gonna laser beam through it. I don't know. We could split hairs on that all day. Nitro V's fine, right? You're getting your money's worth at this price point anyway. There is a humorous amount of jimping back here if you really need to bear down on this teeny tiny little blade. but it's there. So, okay, you know, if maybe you're going to whittle with it, right? You're going to light whittling, and okay, in that case, I suppose I can see it. Civivi does a nice edge, right? It's just a little bit thicker than you would expect for a blade this small, right? It makes sense though when you consider how little room it has to drop. There is a slot milled for lefties to mount the clip on that side, and you know, lefties, you're going to be able to do a front flipper better than me, but manipulating a right-handed liner lock is pretty much a cakewalk. You know, as a right-handed person, manipulating this, you know, trying to manipulate it with my left hand is pretty easy, right? So I don't know, there's not too much to complain about there. It's nice that it is recessed. The clip is not going to wiggle, right? I do really appreciate, again, that the liner lock itself is recessed and not just lipped. It's also really easy to disengage because they've cut out quite a bit here. So yeah, you know, I can't complain about that. Let's see, carry depth. Almost forgot to cover that. Not very much, just a little bit sticking up out of your pocket. Let's see, stop pin is located in the usual position right there, which, yeah, that is it. Okay. No blade play, up, down, left, or right. No lock stick, no pivot lash, consistently smooth action. The detent is light, but it's what you'd expect it to be. Honestly, it's pretty decent right there. Lockup percentage. Oh, what should we call that? Approaching 50, right? Needs to be on a blade this thin. If you look at where it's actually contacting, I would call that 50%, right? So that's good. The base price of this knife comes in at $58, which is pretty much par for the course for Civivi. It would have been nice to see it a little bit less. It's that part of my brain that goes small knife, small money, big knife, big money, which is of course stupid, but sometimes I can't help but think like that. You're not getting a lot of material, but the material that you are getting is appropriate for the price range, and the execution of said materials is also appropriate for the price range. So I just really can't complain. There's nothing here that really wows me, but generally speaking, it is a recommendable knife. It's going to be easy to carry and legal to carry for most of the people who are watching right now. And even if your day-to-day does consist of more heavy-duty cutting tasks, it's likely you can still find a place for this in your life, whether it be in the junk drawer, your bedside table, the tray in your vehicle, right? Or in your pocket in your office job, right? I mean, it's just it's one of those knives that'll work. The one thing I was going to talk about, I wish that it had a flipper tab, and that would solve any issues with awkward deployment that some people might have. It will create an issue, though, and that's that it would not allow you to choke up very well. You'd have to be scooted back, and that flipper tab might make it a little bit awkward, but I think it would solve more problems for more people than create problems, right? That's just my opinion. I don't think a front flipper by itself is a good idea ever. I think it's fine as like a secondary means of deployment, or just, you know, a way for people to fidget with their knives. But a knife this small with a front flipper, I think you're, you know, more likely to accidentally cut yourself or throw the knife, right? So a flipper tab is just a little bit easier to manipulate, and it's a little more of you know, just it's going to stay in my hand while deploying it kind of thing. So I don't know, it's my 2 cents, but generally speaking, you know, the price doesn't blow me away, but it's okay, right? Quality's there. It's not the most wow factor knife in the world, but it's neat. It's going to go on my recommended knives playlist, and it's also going to go on my cheap knives I like playlist because it is in fact under $75. Thanks again to Civivi for sending this in for review. This will likely get given away on one of my live streams, so make sure that you're subscribed so that you can participate when the time comes. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do of course have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on that Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe, because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.